Talk about all of this affecting our wallets. Brandon Arnold, the executive vice president of the National Taxpayers Union, and Jason Sorens is an economist at the American Institute for Economic Research. Good morning, gentlemen. Great to have you.
Morning. Morning.
So we've all heard it, the ongoing war with Iran, it's truly affecting gas prices from coast to coast, with certain states being hit harder than others. And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying the administration is paying close attention. Let's watch.
I'm optimistic that sometime between June 20th and September 20th that we can have $3 gas again. And as I said this morning, too, we are going to be watching the gas stations because they raise prices very quickly when when the crude oil prices went up. We hope they'll bring them down just as quickly.
Brandon, are you as optimistic as Scott Bessent?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. It's going to take a while before we get oil markets to stabilize here. You know, we're talking about infrastructure degradation in the Middle East, an enormous reduction in production. Daily production is down so significantly in OPEC countries, and we've only been able to make up for that a little bit in non-OPEC countries. It's going to take a little while to get that production back to where it needs to be to meaningfully reduce gas prices. And we can watch gas station attendants all day long, but they don't really control the price of gasoline. Their margins when it comes to gasoline sales are actually pretty small. They make their money off selling soda and hot dogs and other items. So gasoline attendants are not, and gas station owners are not going to be able to bring down prices. Only peace in the Middle East, I think, is going to eventually get us back to $3 a gallon. Let's hope that comes very, very quickly.
Well said, Brandon. And Jason, I'm not sure why Secretary Bessent would send that type of messaging out to the nation, knowing that when you look at oil prices, these contracts are going out 3 to 6 months. So, of course, if they're paying more, they have to recoup that cost over similarly the same time period. So when he said gas price, hopefully they can actually lower the prices, you know, as quickly or even faster than they went up, that's sort of like not how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's trying to express maybe solidarity with the American consumer and trying to maybe sort of use the bully pulpit to get businesses to think about cutting prices. But ultimately, prices are set by competition, as my colleague has stated. And so gas stations are really going to only be able to do this to cut their prices when the cost of their input falls. And fortunately, we do see that long futures contracts in oil are significantly lower than the spot price. And so that suggests that markets believe that the price of oil will fall over the next 6 months or so, but that hasn't happened yet.
We're also hearing reports that it might take 6 months to potentially get rid of some of the mines that are allegedly at the Strait of Hormuz. So that's also creating a lot of volatility. Stock futures, though, are down this morning, and oil is up, of course. Global markets are experiencing that volatility with fears of supply chain disruptions. Brandon, what are the key indicators we should be watching?
Well, I mean, I think the key indicators is what happens in Iran. That just looms so large over everything. And again, until we have some sort of stability, some sort of agreement in Iran, we're going to see markets go up. We're going to see markets go down. We're going to see days where there's good news that we feel optimistic. But until we have lasting peace, you know, I think the trend line is what we need to watch. The overall trend line is not going to be positive when it comes to gas prices. You know, stock markets have been surprisingly strong, despite the fact that we have seen some disappointing earnings reports from various companies. I think airlines in particular are really going to be taking it on the chin. We've seen American Airlines, Spirit Airlines, obviously, and a world of hurt. Southwest reporting disappointing earnings, I think, because of fuel prices going so high. And fuel prices just are enormous when it comes to logistics companies and manufacturing companies. So it's really going to take a heavy toll on the economy, I'm sorry to say. I wish I could be a little bit more cheerful this morning.
Hey, we like truth and we like accuracy, so well said, and it's reality. The thing is, Jason, when you look at the reality, yes, Americans are paying more at the pump, and people around the world are doing the same. But when you also look at the business sectors around the world, namely the airlines, jet fuel in Europe, they might actually not have enough jet fuel in the next 6 weeks or so. That's going to have a catastrophic impact on many of those countries in the EU. And it's not just going to be consolidated right there in that region. It's going to have a rippling effect around the world. And lastly, even farmers right here on American soil and around the world cannot get the fertilizer that's needed. And we know that there's a key ingredient from crude oil that goes into fertilizer. So we could even see food shortages that leads to higher prices. What's your 3 to 6 months a month outlook if this war does not come to an end within the next few weeks?
Yeah, so I'm not going to be doom and gloom here. Obviously, high oil costs are going to hurt the economy because energy is such an important input into so many sectors of the economy. However, our economy today is 60% less dependent on oil than it was in the 1970s. So we shouldn't expect anything like the kind of stagflationary shocks that we had in the 1970s. However, inflation is going to be higher, and we already saw that in the March report. That's going to make things difficult for the Fed. They may have to raise interest rates or at least keep them elevated. That could depress some economic activity. So we should expect somewhat slower growth and higher inflation. But so far, many sectors of the economy are doing very well. We have to think about the ongoing AI revolution that now seems to be filtering out to other sectors of the economy where other industries are now reporting strong earnings growth, strong productivity growth. So the underlying forces in the U.S. economy are quite strong. I should also mention the fact that we are an oil exporter thanks to the fracking revolution, which Europe rejected. So for all of these reasons, the U.S. is sitting in a better position than a lot of other countries around the world.
Interesting. But there are a lot of concerns with regard to AI in terms of people losing their jobs. So I don't know if that's a bright spot. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, real quick, we have to get to this. There's a bombshell report. Certain Americans found out this week that they've been literally duped by the Southern Poverty Law Center, now facing fraud charges over secretly funding extremist groups. Here's what White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt had to say.
It was quite shocking to me to learn of the egregious violations of the law of the Southern Poverty Law Center was committing. And I think that's a story that should be on the front page of every newspaper in this country because they've obviously been duping their supporters and the American taxpayers for far too long. It's a criminal organization, clearly, and that's not our DOJ saying that or Todd Blanche saying that. That's a grand jury indictment saying that.
Brandon, how can generous Americans steer clear of these scams and keep money in their pockets?
Well, you only want to support reputable nonprofit organizations. And I just so happen to work for one, for those who are interested in spreading their love somewhere else. But, listen, there are a lot of scamsters out there, a lot of fraudsters, and it is more difficult than ever to tell the good from the bad. There are, fortunately, some publications out there that do report on nonprofit management, on where the people are spending money. Are they out there actually, helping folks in the field, or are they just hoarding all that money and paying their executives a fortune? So you need to pay attention to that. But yeah, it is a difficult environment out there in the nonprofit world, and there's far too many fraudsters and scamsters.
Yeah, like the American people are getting hit with after-tax dollars in terms of donations to, Southern Poverty Law Center and other nonprofits. And we're also getting attacked by our own state and federal government with the scams, whether it be Medicaid, Medicare, the list goes on. We need to get rid of the scams, both in government as well as private sector.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Brandon and Jason.
Thank you.
Thanks.